Today we're updating my legendary tier list for city defense, open fielding, rallying, and also canyon. So stick around in this video for the very best commanders for whatever it is you're trying to do in Rise of Kingdoms. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And I update this legendary tier list almost every single month to give you the latest and greatest information about how commanders are performing. This is across the following categories: city defense, open field, rallying cities, rallying objectives like flags and forts, defending those same objectives, and also canyon. I'll very briefly show my rating scale up on the screen. There is one S+ per category. That's the best of the best. S is the highest rating. Then there's A, B, C, D, and E. At one point, this also laddered into my epic tier list. And as a reminder, there's timestamps in the description of this video, so you can jump to whichever portion you're most interested in. Let's start with city defense, which is a category where I feel like I got a little bit more experience firsthand getting my city rallied, and I've got some takeaways from that I think are really important, because historically I felt like for city defense you just smash YSS and or Theo on your wall and that's the way to go. But I actually now feel differently, and there's a number of reasons why this is the case. First of all, the power level of commanders has gone through the roof. Whereas YSS and Theo are giving you lots of stats for all troop types, and you have all those in your city. The problem is that the new commanders simply do too much damage. You need to use new commanders, I think, to counter whatever rally is coming your way. Yes, YSS and Theo are fine. However, I think now using the newest commanders to counter type is probably the best you can do. For example, if you get rallied with cavalry, then I think it will be a mistake not to use Flavius on your wall. You know that the silences from Flavius are amazing against XY. They're great against Joan. So yes, using Flavius I think is the play. This is why I bumped up Zeno, Flavius, Janziska from S- to S, because I think they work really, really well countering whatever rally is coming your way. Now, the other thing that's kind of funky is that I also bumped up Skippy Prime, because the reality is, like it or not, the dude works for defending your city. My city got swarmed, and he was shredding. I'm not saying he's the right commander to use against a swarm, but I am saying that for both a rally and also a swarm, using him as a secondary commander on your city wall works really well. And he's available to, should be everybody that's expertising him in the Season of Conquest. He is still, in my opinion, the very best open field commander in the game. So yeah, amazing. You can use him in the field and to defend your city, which is super high value. He's a S- now. I still left Theodora, by the way, as a really high ranking, and I got some amount of criticism. There's like, bro, why are you using, Theodora against these rallies that were coming my way? And once I can find Theo, I can show you here that she clears debuffs. She clears a lot of debuffs. When I was getting rallied by Tariq ibn Ziyad and Sargon, and I used Theo and Flavius on my wall, she was clearing the debuff from Tariq. That's a 30% debuff. She was also clearing Sargon's skill damage debuff, which, by the way, really good to clear that, because that means his fourth skill isn't going to activate. And there's one other thing that she was clearing. I can't even remember what it is now. So she is doing amazing stuff defending your city, and her AoE is still hitting lots of things, which is just giving you incremental value. Sure, it isn't necessarily giving you value against the rally, but getting a bunch of kills while your city is getting hit feels pretty damn good, not gonna lie. So that's where I would put city defense for now. Let's jump into the open field ratings, where the king is still Skippy Prime. Now, I've already talked about Skippy Prime really at length in a number of videos, so I won't go in depth here. He's still the best for field, in my opinion, a step above Nevsky. AoE damage, AoE shielding, AoE debuffing. Bro, March speed, he's got it all. But there are other commanders I did bump up. Otherwise, I left the ratings the same, by the way. I think my rating for Sargon was good. I rated him at S, and I still think he's kind of an S. There were a lot of criticisms about like, your enemy's just going to walk away from you. But there's a lot of times where they don't. And my God, you freaking shred your target with Sargon and your Murder Ball, which is exactly what I thought was going to happen. So I'm very happy with him. And I also, Tariq ibn Ziyad, I predicted he would be an S-. I still think he's an S- in the open field. But there's two commanders I actually bumped up, and I think people will be very happy to hear this. And the funny thing about these sorts of tier lists is often people look at them, and the only thing they really want to hear is that they've made good choices. They don't actually want my perspective on reality. They just want me to tell them that their commanders are good. I actually think Ethel is deserving of an S-. And I had bumped her down to A+, but the more you look at the big brawls that are happening, especially if you look at Ark of Osiris League, people are still using Ethelfled in Ark of Osiris League in top tier gameplay. Even when they're playing with access to every single commander in the game, they still choose Ethelfled. And that's simply because her damage factor over here with AoE does not decrease based on hitting more targets. So it's super powerful. If you want a full explanation of why Ethel is still the jam and why Ark of Osiris League, Grand Prix, and league winners are using this commander, card will be up in the top for that video. I have explained it in depth, but I'll remind you at the end as well. By the way, if you're getting value from this video, do me a huge favor and just throw a like on the video. It supports the channel tremendously. And if you want to get more videos just like this one in your daily YouTube feed, then subscribe to the channel for videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies every single day. The other commander I actually bumped up, which people will feel very validated to hear, is Richard I. And you may be thinking, why did you bump up Richard I all of a sudden? And that's because even I'm swapping him in periodically, specifically when he is expertised for the instant proc 50% slow that lasts 5 seconds. If I hit you with a Richard, okay, my 7 marches will melt you. You're dead. You have no chance. You're done. You are not getting away. And that effect is actually super powerful. Do I think he's a good investment? Not necessarily. I would invest in lots of other commanders first. But I'm saying if you have him, he actually is pretty damn powerful. Now from here, let's talk about rallying cities. And I alluded to this earlier that if you're defending your city, you need to counter type. You need to use something that will wreck the rally. And you need to ideally use one of the newer commanders and potentially mix with Theodora. But that means when you're rallying cities, I actually think Tariq ibn Ziyad is the best commander to use. You may think, really? Like, why does he all of a sudden displace cavalry? Is this just because you're an infantry simp Chisgule? I don't think so, and let me explain. If they rally with cavalry, which used to be like the best you could do, right? You could use Nevsky and Joan or XY and Nevsky. There is a counter, and that is Flavius. You can counter that. If they rally with Henry, okay, you can use cavalry commanders that counter that. We know that the cavalry commanders shred the archers in a flag, and I think this can be true for city defense as well. They counter that. Not as well as when you're in a flag and you have only the one troop type. But what I'm trying to say is that if you rally somebody with Tariq ibn Ziyad, what do you do? What do you put on your wall? It's not YSS. The dude absolutely raffle stomps YSS. I mean, shreds YSS. YSS gets decimated. So it ain't YSS. It ain't YSS. So what do you put on your wall? Okay. I think it's got to be Zeno Flavius. I think alternatively, you could do kind of what I was doing with Theo and Flavius, but I think like Zeno Flavius is actually probably your best answer. And that's not an amazing answer because they kind of go even with each other. So that's why I think Tariq ibn Ziyad with Sargon or Pakal right now is your best rally. Okay? Because there's not a great answer for defending your city. Other people may specify otherwise. That's fine. But that's why you see that shift in rating with Sargon going up higher than I thought he would be. Tariq ibn Ziyad going up higher than I thought he would be. And also you've got XY dropping down from a previous S+ rating. Which brings us to rallying objectives. And I wasn't far off from what I thought reality would look like here. But I did also bump Sargon up again to an S because, yes, for rallying objectives, Sargon's really good. Better than I thought he would be, actually. And I did bump down Henry who was the previous S+, I still now give that to Tariq ibn Ziyad. Now, Henry is really good. He counters the infantry garrison. Crucial. You want to rally infantry with your Henry, okay? But, I mean, you can rally with Tariq ibn Ziyad against almost anything. And the only, like, true counter to this, in my opinion, is the archers. Artemisia and Amanatori. But the problem is that even that counter is weak. And this is true for city defense, by the way. I probably neglected to mention this. But look at the damage factor on Amanatori, okay? It's really bad. 1,300 damage factor. We don't have a new generation archer that can actually counter Tariq ibn Ziyad. That's the problem. You don't have a great way to counter it. Okay, even if you use Amanatori, which I neglected to mention in the rallying cities section, 1,300 damage factor is not very good. And the other issue with defending an objective is that, okay, fine, you put archers in there, I can still rally you with Tariq ibn Ziyad, and then we're going to swarm your garrison. And the archer garrison is more vulnerable than others to getting swarmed. That's why I think Tariq ibn Ziyad right now is probably one of the better rallies. It also works really well in Ark of Osiris. Okay, so S+ is where I've got Tariq ibn Ziyad. I don't think it's just because I'm an infantry specialist, okay, or simp. I think it's because it's actually just that good. And I think we are overdue for an archer garrison. I think that calculus will completely change when a new archer garrison comes into the game. But until that time, I think that Tariq ibn Ziyad is a great rally, which brings us to defending objectives. And I've bumped down YSS specifically because Tariq ibn Ziyad, for whatever reason, just absolutely shreds this dude. Whether it's a Xeno YSS, whether it's a Jad YSS, I am extremely confident I am going to trade extremely positive if you are using YSS in that situation. So I bumped him down, okay, to an S-. I mean, he's still good against a bunch of other things. And I bumped up Artemisia because Amanatori Artemisia suddenly has more viability. I'm not saying it's an amazing garrison, but it has more viability because I think it's fine to use against the infantry and just hope they don't swarm you. And let's be real. If you're defending a fort, that's really hard to swarm, okay? That is actually really painful to swarm. So this is a garrison that will work really, really well against infantry, both in a pass and in a fort. That's going to work really well. This brings us to the final category, which is canyon. And I made a few slight adjustments, but like nothing too crazy. I bumped Nebu down slightly because, in my opinion, in the best canyon lineups, there's only room for one Archer March right now. This is like best of the best. So I put Nebu down to an A+. I don't think 2 Archer Marches is where it's at. I also bumped down Saladin ever so slightly. I bumped down Minamoto ever so slightly. Canyon rankings otherwise stayed mostly the same. My estimation for Tariq ibn Ziyad, I think, is right. I do think Sargon is really strong, but not meta. I don't think he's meta. Okay, I don't think he's the best you can do. So I have him at S-, which I think is fair, but I've seen some crazy stuff with Sargon and Honda Tadakatsu, better than you would think. I've seen some crazy stuff with Trajan, Sargon, better than you would think. But I wouldn't put him in the best of the best, not currently. And for whatever reason, Theo I had rated pretty highly because her AoE is just really nutty in this game mode. It's the same reason that Esong does really well. Theo AoE does really, really well here. So I had her ranked probably higher than I should. I mean, I bumped her down to an A+. Okay, so otherwise, kind of a minor change to the overall Canyon rankings, which brings us to the overall ratings. And overall, comedically, a commander that I really don't want to bump up, even though I'm an infantry specialist, is I had to bump up Pakal. I bumped him up for rallying cities and his rating there. I bumped him up for rallying objectives, and I bumped him up to an S overall because, yeah, I mean, he's really good with Tariq ibn Ziyad, and he's got so many other uses. Would I say Pakal overall is a great open field commander? Absolutely not. He doesn't do AoE damage. He doesn't do big debuffs. He doesn't do big buffs. He's honestly not doing all that much for you. I wouldn't use him, and I don't use him. other than cheeseburgering, which I haven't had occasion to do in a really long time. If you don't know what cheeseburgering is, where you pop out of your city and you trade positive against a bunch of marches to get incremental value, card will be up in the top. You can check that out. Overall, I still think Nevsky is probably the best commander in the game because he can rally, and also he can field really well, and also he's really good in Canyon. You could make an argument for swapping in Skippy, because Skippy is actually really good for defending a flag. I hate to say defending a flag, but he works for defending a flag and for defending your city and for fielding. It's true. I wouldn't rally with Skippy, though, for what it's worth. People have been trying to rally with Skippy and Guan. I just don't think that either of them works really well for that. And there is one commander that I bumped down overall, and that is Alexander the Great. And some people are going to get really upset to hear that I've put Alexander the Great at S-. Don't freak out, because his open field rating is still exactly the same, okay? He's still just as good as he was before in the open field. The reason I can't give him an S rating is that when you compare to every other commander I have in the S rating, they either rally or garrison in addition to great open field value. And all Alexander the Great is doing is open field value. And he's not even the best of the best for Canyon, okay? So I had to bump him down to an S- because when you look at who else is at the best of the best, Nevsky, Skippy, Boudica, Joan, Guan, Sargon, Tadic, XY, Henry, Nebu, Gilga. The only one that doesn't actually rally or garrison is Guan Yu. And the reason he still lives on that list is because the silence is too good, man. That debuff is too good. I'll let him stay because he's like one of the top commanders in the game still. But one of these days, Guan Yu is going to be outpaced, man. But we're not there yet. Now, if you do want to see my list of which commanders are really great to invest in, commanders that I think are going to be good for a really long time and are not just good now, I'll have a card in the end screen right over here for the last time I updated that investment tier list. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want the video on why it is that Ethelflaed is used by the best of the best, card will be right over here in the end screen as well.